Okay, vi fortsätter. Let's continue. Now we will hear from the Ministry of Education, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education and Culture, Anita Lehikoinen, kanslichef Anita Lehikoinen från Finlands utbildningsministerium. Och du hade en PowerPoint-presentation.
Yeah. So, good afternoon everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And it is of course one of the most important topics we can imagine when we talk about peace and sustainability. A few words about the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture. We are one of the biggest ministries in Finland. We use taxpayer funding every year, about 7 billion euros, and we cover the whole education and research sector, starting from early childhood education and care, basic education and upper secondary education, and then also higher education, research, youth and sports, arts and culture. And it is a big ministry, and we always say that we meet, or the services presented or financed by the ministry, they actually, every citizen or person living in Finland comes to terms with those services. And in our vision work, we started this 2018, and actually it is a vision and strategy by the civil servants working for the ministry. We are about 250 people working. And when we started to have a strategy and vision for the ministry, of course we were thinking, what happens if the political leaders and decision makers do not think that these are the right values or strategic goals? But then we talked about it a very long time actually within ourselves, amongst ourselves, and thought that of course we must present for the taxpayers, for people living in Finland, that what we think are the most important values and tasks for the ministry, following obviously what is said in legislation, but also what we think are the most important things. And when this vision or the strategy was prepared, it came out in 2019, just before the elections. And there the important thing you can see already in this picture, if you can see it, it is a young child. And obviously we think that it all starts with early childhood education and care, so that we can even out the socio-economic background impacts of kids, so that they can start the school education on an even level. And this is a very important thing for us. And our strategy or the vision work, it is only a few lines here, what the ministry promises to do for the people or the whole nation. So the promise is to create the right conditions for fostering skills, employment, creativity and inclusiveness in society, and to strengthen the economy's capacity for renewal in order to enable well-being and sustainable growth. And these are very important promises. In Finland, obviously, we are known for the good level of our education, and also for the kind of equity and equality-based social policies. But we also see that we are not as good as we would like to be, and we are not as good as we thought for a long time that we are. The learning results of our 15-year-olds, they have been measured for a long time, and we have seen a decline in those results for many years, both in numeracy and reading. And this has been going on for a long time, but it is actually very difficult to get the message through in society if the national image and our image of ourselves are that we are probably the best educated people in the world, but we are not. We are about on the average between the OECD countries when we talk about the education level of the people. And this is something of a surprise to many decision makers. So now we think that we must do better, and we have to invest in education, also in arts and culture and in research. And obviously this is very challenging in times when the public money is so scarce. But then again, it always is. So it is a matter of prioritizing important causes in society. And we would like to think that education and research, like arts and culture, they are investments for better lives for everybody. But of course, this is not as simple as it could be. But when we talk about sustainability, we think that we really have to educate better the whole population, and we have to increase our investment level in R&D work, because otherwise we can't handle the green transition that is ahead of us. And we have to and upskill our people very, very much, because we have to change the whole economic policy, or the basis is going to be changed in a very little time. So our companies need and upskilled people, because we can't change just like that overnight what we have been doing so far. And then also needs to be a kind of mindset change within our people at large. Everybody in Finland, I would say everybody, is extremely worried about the diversity of our nature being so much diminishing. And most people are also very concerned with the climate change. But still, if you are concerned, it doesn't mean that you actually can do something about it. If you're not well educated, if you don't have the opportunity to and upskill all the way through. And as I was saying about the learning skill, capacities, or not the capacities, but result, and the level of qualifications not being high enough, but also we are not good at integrating or building an inclusive society in Finland. This is a very big thing. As you know, that we have been a very homogeneous country for a long time, and the immigration really started into Finland in the 1990s. And at some point, we were the fastest growing immigration background population in Europe. So there has been a big and very sort of fast cultural change in Finnish society. And our education system has not been able to provide the same kinds of opportunities or equal results for the kids and young people in the education system if they come from immigrant families. And this is something that we really have to do something. We are actually there is almost a 2-year gap between the learning results of Finnish people in Finland and then kids with immigration background. And this is terrible. It's the worst, it's the biggest gap in OECD countries. So we can't really say that we have the best education system in the world. So this is a big promise from the side of the ministry and a commitment from the civil service side to work towards this goal at all times. And then I said about the continuous learning that has been a big systematic change or reform during this government, so that we could keep everybody not only employable and able to do the things you need to do, but also to provide everybody tools for active citizenship. And this is very important. So active citizens we need. During this government term, we managed to raise the age for compulsory education. That has been a long-term goal for some political parties in Finland, and now it was realized. So everybody has to go to school or learn the results by the upper secondary and vocational education until they are 18, and then you are allowed to complete the qualification free of charge, completely free of charge until you're 20. So it means the government will pay, for example, computers and all the learning materials you need when you're studying in upper general education, the lukio, or then in vocational education and training. And that is a big investment in education. It's a big investment in the future of the nation. So a 29 million euros was put to this every year. So it is a big investment in education, because we see that every year around 15% of young people leave upper secondary level education without a qualification. And we know that they can't find really employment. And we know that the external impacts of higher education levels are so important that we really have to invest that everybody has these opportunities. And also then about research and development. With these huge changes, when we have to stop using fossil energy and we have to come up with sustainable growth possibilities. So creative side is very important, creative growth sector, but also that we just have to know more. We have to know more and we have to be able to do more. So investment in research and development and innovation. And the government has put a goal, and in fact all the political parties in our parliament have committed to the goal that we invest 4% of GDP to R&D by 2030. And I think it is quite an achievement that all political parties in our parliament, they committed themselves to this goal. We had a parliamentary group working for this goal in fall, and now it started new work to think where and how to make sure that we have a balanced investment in R&D and I. So basic research also is very important goal in this. So much is being done, but we know that there is still a long way to go. We all know that even with these opportunities to education and cultural activities, for example, we know that there are huge polarized situation between people who actually use these services. And we can see that if you have a good level of education, you have good employment, you live in southern parts of the country, you use more of these opportunities. So we invest actually more to those people who do well from the very beginning. And this is something that we now try to make better. So then, as I said, it was a lengthy process by the civil servants of the ministry, and obviously we discussed this with our government agencies, and then where it all kind of boiled down to is that we promised to safeguard democracy and freedom of expression. So this is what is really in the essence of the Ministry of the Education and Culture. And in 2018, obviously we have been already worried about the situation, not only in Finland, but even within EU. We know that we have member states who are not actually playing by the book and following rule of law, and where democracy is threatened. And now, obviously, the global situation, the situation in Europe has become worse and worse, and we are facing a war in our neighborhood. But then the idea why it is so important for the Ministry of Education and Culture is that the Finnish nation state is still quite young. We got our independence 1917, and this has been very important that we use all the people's potential in the country, and we make everybody feel part of this nation. That was the kind of starting a nation building in the country. But then also what we think that we should stand for people living in Finland and at the global level and in our Nordic cooperation, in our European cooperation, and also at the global level, is that we will foster the values of democracy and freedom of expression. What it means in practice is that we safeguard the autonomy of science, research, and arts and culture and civil society. And through the ministry, we finance civil society quite a lot. There are organizations, different kinds of organizations, tens of those. And it's very important for us that in legislation or in the stipulations how we can use the money, we demand something. We do not give state aid to all kinds of organizations, but you have to commit the organization's values to freedom of speech, to equity and equality. And that is quite important, actually, because we have to be certain that we safeguard this no matter what kind of governments we may have. So this is the very important thing. And also how we interact with citizens. So this is how the government continues to be legitimate, that we openly and in collaborative way interact with citizens at all times. Also opening up processes, open science, open research, open data. Data is actually very important so that people can be active, that they know what is wrong, what needs to be amended. You have to have open data sources of every field of life, and we are, I would say, very good in this. And of course, then I must say a few words about the importance of having university autonomy and that we educate and train teachers at the level of universities. And this we see now that is being threatened and actually challenged in many countries. Our teachers, they have master qualifications, they are able to do research, read research. And when we decide on the national core curriculum, last time there were something like 700 people taking part in the process. And it is always based on science and research. And the government does not decide on the contents of the national core curriculum. It is done by those people, educators, who know what it is, what should be taught to everybody. And this is something very, very different. And we see what kind of damage can be done. For example, in our neighboring country, in Russia, they started to tamper with the national core curriculum about 10 years ago. It was changed completely to build and sort of make sure that everybody learns this patriotic contents of their history, of their culture, of their politics. And now they are changing completely the contents of their teacher education. So this is how you can very easily actually upset democratic societies. And this is also happening in some member states of the EU, that you start to meddle with autonomy of teaching, education and research. And suddenly you don't have freedom of speech, and then we can see the results. So that's why this is so very important. And we think that this media literacy or multi-literacy is so very important, that our young kids, they mostly know what is true and what is not true, even in social media, because this is part of the national core curriculum starting from early childhood education and in basic education. This is something that is actually of great interest to our international delegations when they come to Finland. This is what they are interested about, is how we can make sure that media literacy is at a good level in Finland. And then the last promise. And these are very, I would say that we are very, very aware that they are very strong promises that the civil service side has made to Finnish nation, taxpayers. So we reinforce gender equality, parity and mutual respect. And we all know that if we don't do this, we don't have a socially cohesive society, and we don't have this common ideals how we defend our culture and, if need be, also the country. Create opportunities for a meaningful life for all. This was very important, these words, when we thought about this. Merkityksellinen elämä. So that everybody can have like contents to their own life, enriching contents to their own life. And there we have arts and culture, we have the educational path as far as possible you can take, and also youth work and sports activities provided in all parts of the country. And then the increase of international impact and commit to sustainable development. And obviously now it's very easy for the civil service side to say that we commit to sustainable development when Agenda 2030 is the framework for the whole coalition program, our government program. And it is our duty to follow these promises and pledges we have made to the society, to those people who live here and who want to make Finland even a better place for all the people who want to come to Finland, study here, work here. So take responsibility. It's a very hard decision to say that we take responsibility for securing the foundations of education and culture in society. And this is part of the policy of speaking truth to power. It may take a long time when we say that, look at the data and see that we are not fulfilling the promises of equity and equality or inclusiveness in our society. We have data to prove it, and perhaps you would like to do something about this. So data and knowledge about the situations is so very important, and that's why we keep repeating our messages. And obviously then in democratic societies, those who become elected in elections, they make the decisions, but at least we make sure that they have the way, they have the possibility to do all the right choices. Thank you so very much.